So this is the re-recording of the third episode of Visual Podcast, where we're going to talk about Kickstarter. And today I've got Zack from Cherry Kiss Games, and we're going to talk about the Kickstarter campaign that he ran. So hey, Zack.
Hello, hello.
Hello, welcome
Let us
again.
get right down to the talking about the glorious Cinder Idol Kickstarter and how successful it was.
Seriously. Okay, so this is the Cinder Idol. You represent Cherry Kiss Games. You guys are localizing this game. And okay, so take us the background of just what this is and why were you doing it? When did it happen?
Okay, so as most people who would have heard of Cherry Kiss know, we picked up the rights to release a full 18 plus, like the full version of the game Wild Romance. And for those who don't know, Wild Romance was released on Steam about, I think, in late 2015. But it had all the adult content stripped out of it. It was like an experiment by the Japanese company to see if they could release like a family-friendly version onto Steam. And needless to say, the comments they received were all a lot of people being like, where's the full game? Why is this missing content? Blah, blah, blah. And so we swooped in and said, hey, we're going to get the remaining 18 plus content and whatever else was mistranslated, and we'll release a full game. And we also ended up swapping it to a new engine so that we could release like the patch that could be installed on the Steam version, just because the engine they were using, we didn't really understand how one would go about creating a patch file for it. So then after all that came and went, a fan approached us by saying, I noticed you guys are localizing Norn titles. Like, we made it clear that we're working with Norn and Miel to localize a lot of their games.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, I've translated a portion of this other game, and that game was Cinder Idol.
Mm-hmm.
And so we looked at it, we read it, and it's like, oh, this translation is good. Like, this looks like an interesting game. Like, it kind of starts off with like a bit of a plot where it's just like, Rui is a sensational idol, but it turns out she's also a huge masochist. so we were like, oh, I can kind of see where this is going, and this seems interesting and good. And it was, so he kind of convinced us in a way to do a Kickstarter, because we were like, listen, like, we don't, like, translation's expensive.
Yeah.
And we're still, like, we're still waiting for, like, the Wild Romance to take off.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, we looked into doing a Kickstarter, and we kind of came into it with, like, a little bit, like, we thought we had a plan, but the plan quickly devolved as the Kickstarter started. And so we looked into doing stuff on that pre-Fundia. We tried doing Thunderclap, but like, since Cherry Kiss had such a small following, like, I kind of thought kickstarting a Kickstarter on pre-Fundia seemed like a weird way to go about things. And I think we started the Thunderclap maybe a week before the Kickstarter was about to close, and I'm just like, all right.
Classic. That's how it goes. Well,
yeah.
When you're starting a Kickstarter, you don't realize just how much stuff you have to prepare on.
Yeah,
right.
A lot of the references we had were like a great point of reference for us was Soul Press, because at the time they were doing the Newton Kickstarter, and so of course, like, we looked at everything they did to try to get people involved, and like oh, they did this Thunderclap thing. I guess we should look into it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's how you learn. There are so many tools out there, right?
Exactly.
All right, to step back, this project, you guys launched it early Feb, something like that, I want to say.
Yeah, at the like, I think it was exactly January 24th was the day it went live.
Okay, and then it went on for a month or so, and then
it ran until February 28th.
Right, and then so you get it. It got funded 11,000 ish, I think, Canadian. Woohoo! Yep. Right. And then after that, you've been in the process of fulfilling it. So it's been about a month and a half now. Actually, a month. So, all right. So let's see. So I guess we can start from the beginning, right? It's like, okay, so the planning part, right? You touched on a lot of things that you were testing out. You were imitating others, looking around, seeing the thing. So what about the planning that you felt went well, and what went just horribly wrong?
I think the most difficult part of planning was just trying to figure out what other people were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because Kickstarter does have the rules where it's like you can't blatantly have a trailer with, like, just anime boobs in it. And as most people would, if people have heard of Norn and Miel, like they're primarily Nuki titles, so it's just mostly sex scenes, and that's the selling point of these games. Is just like it's gonna be a lot of sex. So it was hard to just it was hard to promote it in such a way that would be acceptable on Kickstarter, and like we kind of faced that problem already with Steam, so that wasn't that big of a deal.
Uh-huh.
But the another hard thing was just like looking at all the other companies that were launching these big Kickstarters, and not even the ones that had like $100,000 in like the first hour, but
Right.
just even the ones that succeeded like no, I don't want to say barely, but met their goal.
Hmm.
It was hard for us just because we'd look at them and be like, oh man, like that at the bottom of the list it would show their team and it would be like 8 people, and it's like okay, well 8 people is not that many, but we're working with like 3 or 4, so already we have a limit on how much stuff we can provide people. And as part of planning, we wanted to try to like we noticed that a lot of the Kickstarters had the same amount of backers, but would have like a huge like what would you call it disparity in how much money they raised.
Oh yeah, the
Where like
the average backer size is totally the backer amount totally different.
yeah, yeah. It was like I think even our Kickstarter we got 350 backers, and that's a lot. And we
Hmm.
raised $11,000. But I've seen other Kickstarters with less than 200 raise maybe 30,000 or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And it would just be because they offer like really like I guess high end tiers. Like they offer a lot
Hmm.
of like $1,000 plus tiers that give people like access to or change things about the game even. And so that was like hard to we couldn't really do that as well because the game we're trying to localize, like the point of localization is it already exists.
Yeah.
So I think we were kind of stretching it by saying like, hey, you can name one of the nameless characters because just a lot of the Norn games have like in this one we have male student and female student and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So it's like, oh sure, like you can name this male student who tries to hit on the main hero in Rui and like gets rejected.
Awesome. Yeah, tiering is hard, especially because you
Yeah.
have to set up all the tiers, right? And I remember looking at your tiers and they were very simple and clear, which is actually a good thing, right? There was no complicated arcane setup, right? They were like you see some of the more earlier Kickstarters, and it would be like the tiers were not stacks of items on top of each other, so that tier 3 was always better than was just essentially tier 2 plus some items.
Yeah.
That's easy to understand. If I give more money, I get an added widget or two, right? There would always be people who would be like, no, 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 no. These tiers, like there's this tier that has ABC, that tier has DEF, and then there's no way you can get all the things from all the tiers.
Yeah. Or I think I remember talking about it earlier with you saying like, oh, then there's another tier that's more expensive, but you get A, D, and F, and it's just like like you said, I just want all 6. Like, how do I
Right.
do this?
Uh-huh.
And I guess just on the topic of tiers, like that was another planning struggle because as we started, we could only guarantee we would sell the game on Steam just because that's the only store we've worked with in the past
Right.
distributing Wild Romance that had the I guess you just call it like digital redeemable keys.
Hmm.
And so of course like a lot of the first comments we got were, hey, is this going to be out on X store on this place? Can I buy it here? Can I get? And then the other one was, can I get it without DRM? And we're just like we can't promise anything yet because we're only on these 2 places and this other place doesn't offer this key system. So like we could only offer one way at the beginning. And I
Yeah.
think that was just kind of hard for people to understand where it's like oh, why don't you just, send X store an email? And it's like, well,
Yeah. It's like I do send them an email, but it takes another 5 weeks to get that contract done
yeah,
or
'cause
whatever.
then,
Right?
yeah, like they need to send us a contract. We need to send them back the contract being like, can you change this, that, and this? And it's like, no, and then blah, and blah.
Yep. Changes in business take time. Like it's like we
Yeah.
occasionally get questions like, why don't you accept, for example, Bitcoin? It's like, okay, yeah, right.
A big one for us as well was people wanting to
PayPal.
pay via PayPal.
Yep.
I guess this is kind of off the topic of planning, but at the very end of our campaign,
Mhm.
our highest tier, the $800 tier, pulled out on the last day because he sent us an email being like, "Oh, can I pay with PayPal, by the way?" And we're just like, "No." We've made this clear since the beginning. You can't pay with PayPal. And then he's like, oh, that's a shame. And just all of a sudden we went back down below the 10,000 goal. And we were just like,
it's that guy. Yeah, because what? Kickstarter runs through Amazon Payments, I think, right? So Amazon Payments is its own insanity. But yeah, and so PayPal, I know that's like the number one request. Whenever we run any Kickstarter, it's always, can I pay with PayPal? Can I pay with PayPal? Because some people don't have credit cards, but they want it back, or for whatever reason, right? So,
or they don't. Oh yeah, they don't want that back. That I don't know. Like what the problem would be. Like I don't want it written on my credit card statement that I backed some weird anime titty game.
Yeah, though it just says Kickstarter, I think on it. I don't even remember. But, oh well. But yeah, there's always all these concerns, and it's tricky. So when you were planning your tiers, one of the big things is that tiers can't change.
Yes.
So you had to budget out, put the price tag on it with all the things, and then when you release it, that's it.
Yep.
So how did that go?
So I guess like on you mentioned budgeting, and thankfully we never had to change the price of anything. But like I was saying earlier with the whole Steam key debacle, in about the middle of the Kickstarter, we finally got onto another store that would allow us to sell the DRM free 18 plus all inclusive version.
Right.
And then trying to send that message where it's like, hey, this tier is exactly the same as the other tier, but it's just for this other store. And then we kind of realized, oh, people aren't swapping.
Right.
But I could we could foresee at the end of the Kickstarter, someone will be like, hey, I backed this tier, but I don't want this key. Can I get one for the other? It's like, okay, you could have swapped, but you didn't. And that's fine. We'll make another update that just says, any key can be anything. Like it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah. And that's just more headache.
Again, to try to make it as simple as possible, where it is just like you bought a copy of the game, we'll give you a copy.
Yep. And you guys didn't even use BackerKit or any other fulfillment service. Nope. So you were telling me you were just emailing keys out.
Oh yeah, I was sending them through the Kickstarter messaging system. I was like, because you can filter, like, thank God, like in the Kickstarter backend, you can filter by like reward tier. So yeah, I was messaging everyone who asked for that reward, being like, here is your key, so and so.
300 plus emails with a spreadsheet.
Oh yeah. I haven't even had to send the Cinder Idol keys yet. That's gonna be a long day. Yep.
So yeah, and you're a small operation. You've got 3-4 guys, so it's not like, find an intern or something. Nope.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was gonna say. Like, man, maybe like the boss is like someone's kid that he knows will be able to sit down and send emails for a day.
Just a guy on Craigslist. Okay, your job is to paste this into this email and go and just hit send.
Put it up on what is it called? Fiverr, Craigslist.
Lots of Fiverr. Yeah. Seriously, it's just. Logistics are a thing.
Oh yeah, logistics are a thing.
So anything else that you were thinking about? Like, so when you were planning it, right? So you had the thunderclap going, and you were trying to copy other things. Anything like what else didn't go according to plan that you were like, oh, in hindsight, you should have just known?
So in hindsight, we should have just known that. In hindsight, I think I'm happy with the tiers that we have. There isn't much more we could have added that would be within like the doable realm of us. Like none of us have ever produced like the more stereotypical like tapestries or dackies or whatever. And so we don't even have a clue how that would work. So we tried to avoid stuff like that. But I wish we included the postcard tier earlier, because that one, I think that would have been really popular. It was like, I think it was a really good price of $25. And towards the end of the Kickstarter, I believe we made a little promotion where we were like, hey, if you pledge more than $19, you'll get a free Wild Romance key with like whatever else your tier includes. So I think, yeah, if you backed at the postcard tier, which was $25, you got like our guy in Japan would write a postcard like, as I don't want to break kayfabe here, guys, but he would pretend to be Rui and like autograph a postcard. And we'd also get like your name in the credits and 2 digital keys for Cinder Idol and a key for Wild Romance. And like that seems like a super good deal to me. Yeah. And so I feel like if maybe even if we stepped the whole like you get a Wild Romance key with the whole promotion, we might have gotten some more, or it might have just gone up faster. Just because we didn't have any stretch goals. Like I don't know if people would be willing to contribute above like the $10 like it's cheaper than it will be on release tier.
Yeah. It's hard to say with these things.
Yeah, I know. I don't think not having a stretch goal. I don't know if it would have helped or hurt us, just because I would feel bad if we did a stretch goal that was adding like another language, for example, and someone who only spoke that language or who would prefer to play the game in that language backed, assuming that we'd get that eventually, and then us being like, well, we didn't make it, sorry, like, but you already gave us your money.
Yeah, that is a weird area of Kickstarter, right? That you are promising a thing, so if you don't deliver, there are consequences to it.
Yeah, or it's like it's something we promised if we make the goal, and then we don't make the goal, but people donated assuming, or like, I guess that is like the inherent, like the gamble. Like, I hope they make the goal. I hope other people care, but
yeah, I mean, in theory, they can always back off their thing right before, but there's always going to be that one inattentive guy who wasn't paying attention and then realizes
who
it
like
3 months
fired,
later,
forgot, and then comes back a month later being like, I want a refund. I don't want to play whatever and whatever. And it's just like, well,
okay. It's like, okay,
I guess you can, sure.
Yeah, it's just okay. So during the campaign, how did it go? Like you said, you didn't have any stretch goals, so you guys were just like aiming to pay off this localization project, and then it went, it had an okay start, and then of course it had the inevitable slow period in the middle.
Yeah.
So how did that?
There was definitely that's where a lot of the that's where the talk of like, well, we really should do this thunderclap thing, or like, we really need to figure out more tiers we can add. And luckily, towards that middle drought, I guess you could call it, that's when the deal with Faku came through, and they were like, oh yeah, we also have like the key system, so we can distribute like this the magical DRM free 18+ version. We're just like, oh, thank God.
Yep.
So that got some interest, and also just got it got people who like we had some people like talk to us on Twitter and even post comments on the Kickstarter, which I don't know if they got deleted or they changed them themselves. But they were being like, oh, now that you've got this, like, I'm gonna back. And it's like, oh, that's awesome to see the actual like the conversion of all these people that said they wouldn't back until this happened, and the number of them that actually showed up and put their money where their mouth is, I guess.
Yeah, and it also just it happened and gave you an excuse to put an update out.
Yeah, and again, it was also really lucky because then we put the update out, and then Faku would like retweet us, and it's just like, oh boy, someone with like triple, like, what is it, 5-digit followers is like talking about us. Great.
Yep. Like that always helps. I've always noticed that having updates along the timeline is always good. Like it's just people like the interaction, right? So they get a chance to see what you guys are up to. They can get excited about something if you're announcing something.
Yeah. I think that's kind of a problem that we had with the localization, since it is just like, we aren't going to start working until the Kickstarter is over. Yeah. So it's hard to provide people with an update of like what's happening now, where it's like, well, we haven't, we're not working on the game yet.
Yeah, but even localization is not a fast thing. I mean, like I can only do a few 100 lines per hour. Like that's just how it's gonna go, right? So it's not like you can just come back saying, okay, we finished 20% of the game yesterday. Like that's not ever gonna happen. And so like there's a limit to like status updates during an update is kind of, I don't know, it's setting yourself up for pain. I think it's I've always seen it better as like have a thing to show off, whether it's a new tier or a new widget that like, or you finally have the designs for, say, your postcards. You get to slap the design up. Yeah, exactly. 2 weeks in.
That's one of the things that got like, I think we got a lot of I guess we got a lot of like reach on social media through that, just to be like, hey, new update on the Kickstarter. And then of course every time we mentioned an update on the Kickstarter, we were lucky if like, someone like Faku who we're getting involved with was tweeting about it, just because it's like they want the game to succeed as well, since they'll be getting, a cut of all the sales.
Yep. So did you guys, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, what?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, so yeah, they're like invested in seeing the project succeed. So every time we had an update, we were lucky to get it out there.
So I wanted to ask you, did you guys like plan out any kind of update things ahead of time?
No, we didn't. So before we even launched the Kickstarter, we tried to do like a weekly development blog that is basically just like what I did that week. And so that was just kind of like, I just transferred that from the website and I would just repost it as the update on Kickstarter.
Okay.
And so like that was something that was already a habit we had, so that was pretty good. Like it was easy to keep just following through with that.
Pretty good. Did you happen to get much response out of that?
So I'm looking at the updates now, and a few of them have like one comment that would just be, like, oh, cool, or someone reacting.
Mm-hmm.
But no, normal we don't get a lot of feedback on the website where we post this stuff. We actually get the most through our Discord. That's another thing we kind of set up at the beginning of the Kickstarter, just because it would be like you said, right? People like getting acknowledged and like being able to just ask questions like, hey, how's this going, and having a response. And that's taken off quite a lot as well with the advent of the Kickstarter, and I just think like the community naturally like growing by people saying like, oh hey, like these Cherry Kiss guys are pretty cool. Like they actually answer your questions and they're pretty like talkative.
Yeah.
And we've got the benefit of not being like a super huge server where it's just like, I'm gonna mute this because there's so many notifications all the time.
You can turn those off,
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, even in some of the other Discord servers I've checked out, it is just like if I blink, 100 messages have been posted, and I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah, you just learn to not. That happens. You just let it go. Can't keep up with everyone chatting on the internet. That's yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so this happened. You updated, and you finally made it. How did woohoo? Okay, now that you've made it, like all the fun, the real fun starts. Like you are going to get paid. Kickstarter pays you roughly a month after, give or take, because of bank transfers, bank stuff. Essentially, just takes longer.
I think
than
that was one of the things that I guess was. I don't want to say it was difficult to communicate. It was just it's just a hard pill to swallow for some people, where it's like, okay, the Kickstarter succeeded, and then the next day it's like, okay, how much work have you guys done? It's like, we'll hold on. Like we still don't know, like, because there's the Kickstarter will send you the message being like, hey, X number of people's credit cards haven't worked, and it's not Kickstarter's job to follow up with them. So that process began of being like, hi, I hope you still check Kickstarter because your credit card doesn't seem to be working.
Surprise!
Yeah.
This is a whole
a
thing.
Fair number of those turn into, oh, can I pay with PayPal? And we're like, no. And a fair number of those also just turn into, oh, sorry, thanks for letting me know, I fixed it. It's just like, you're a true hero, sir.
It's the little things that you appreciate when you're in this. But yeah, it's a surprise. Most people don't realize how often credit cards fail.
Yeah, and or just like declined, where the credit card company is just like, hey, you had a weird purchase for something called Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm. What is this? And
they do it's like we're protecting you.
Yeah, and so that mess gets cleared up. Takes about a couple of weeks, and then finally,
and even then it takes a few more weeks for the Kickstarter to say like, hey, we've got all the money, we're sending it to you now, and then we do finally get it.
Then it lands in your bank account. Hopefully your bank doesn't say, hey, what's this giant wad of cash?
Yeah, right. Like last time I checked, you guys didn't make this much money. What's going on?
Yep. And then they report you to the feds because, in Canada it's different.
Some guys in some sunglasses and black suits show up and it's just like, we have some questions for Cherry Kiss Games. And it's like,
Yeah. It's an international wire too. So it's like, there are eyes on this. But anyways, it lands in your bank account. You're finally able to start working. People are like hungry for updates, but I mentioned, localization. Localization, of course, does not. You have to wait. It just takes time, right?
And it's also got the what did you call it? The detriment of just being not a very glamorous process, where it is just like, what's the exciting thing happening this week?
Japanese did 20 lines. Woohoo! Or it's like, I photoshopped this one image because it was all one layer and ugliness, right? And so, that happened. So that's just that process. People are usually understanding. Like, you're always going to have guys that are off that, just like demanding things be done yesterday. But most people get that, okay, they backed into a project that doesn't just happen overnight. Yeah. And so they can kind of understand.
That's the benefit of like being in this kind of project. Like, I think most, like you said, right? Most people who are into this kind of thing have a good head on their shoulders, and they know the process.
Yeah, sort of.
Like I know, just because like looking through the backers as they were coming in, like a lot of them had backed like loads of other projects before, and like like we have a few super backers or whatever you call them and stuff like that. So it isn't people being like, this is my first time on Kickstarter. Why is X, Y, and Z not happening right now? It's like, we expect you to be late, and it's like I've gotten a few comments being like, like I'm pleasantly surprised. You guys seem to be on schedule. It's like, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Considering there are those famous Kickstarters that are,
That are still
that,
going on to this
that
day.
are still going on, or just happen to like implode in very amazing ways. Like not even game ones, but like, right?
Even
Like,
the simplest Kickstarters can go completely sideways.
uh-huh. Yeah. And so, okay, so you guys worked. You guys are essentially taking the money and paying a translator most of it, and then some pieces go to running the office and all that stuff. And like, has any craziness happened since then? Like, it's only been a month since you've gotten.
Yeah, so I guess like we are in the clear to talk about this is the translator who translated the first portion of the game has left the project.
Uh,
And so and I know, right? As the Kickstarter succeeded, we were like, yes, finally, and we got one progress update, and then we didn't hear from him for like a month, and so we were like, oh god, like this is not good. And so we scrambled for a week, but we solved the problem where we reached out to the guy who translated Wild Romance for us,
uh-huh.
and we crossed our fingers and said, please tell us you're free, and we worked something out.
Well, at least
So
like
yeah, that was a real week of just I am sweating all the time.
yeah. I mean, you can usually find the guy. It's just the question. Okay, can I pay the guy that I find? Right. So
Yeah.
so like
Yeah, so that was the big nightmare once the Kickstarter got completed. But luckily we worked it out. And I think it's one of those things as well when you tell people it's like this is kind of what happened. It's just like, oh, that could be the biggest problem for a project like this where it is localization, that the translator's gone. But I think we overcame that and people are happy.
I mean, the initial guy was essentially a fan translator, right? So
Yeah.
they were never doing this for money to begin with, so they can always just be like, hey, I got a job, I stopped being a student, see you guys, right?
Yeah.
That happens.
Yeah, it was just a shame because it was like the whole point of the Kickstarter was like to create, I guess, like someone's dream job, and well,
well,
you
it
can't always
doesn't
get
work.
what you want.
I mean, I've had developers that would disappear for 3 weeks, and I like constantly email, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Then later on, they come back saying, sorry, I was in the hospital. This is like they're in Japan,
it's just
right?
like,
So
oh god.
I'm like, sorry.
Yeah, you feel like a real dick.
Well, yeah, partly that, but it's also like, okay, now I know why you weren't answering me. That's fine. But now
Yeah.
I've got a 3 week delay that I was not
Anticipating.
and it's just there. And
yeah.
the whole time you're like, I don't even know I can't really write an update because I don't want to just throw the guy under a bus, right? Because
Exactly. That was the hardest part was when that happened. It was like because everyone at Cherry would be pissed off. Where it's like we just want to write the most scathing thing we can about this guy, but it's like let's be professionals. Let's cool our heads. And like it's one of those things as well. Like I would hate to just post the most depressing update, just being like everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. Like but so like let's solve the problem and then we'll tell people. Just because I feel like that's the best call we could make, and that's what we did.
Yeah, I mean, so I've got another Kickstarter talk speaker lined up that's 1 year into his project. So I'm gonna
Holy
talk to
cow.
him about all the craziness that will happen after, and dealing with that.
That is very far future.
Yeah, because you guys will be fairly done with this project within this year probably, if it's like localization.
I
right?
think
So,
the initial goal was to get everything done by the end of this month, but I doubt that'll happen just because of of course, as we finish the Kickstarter, like all of a sudden we have this huge revelation, like let's change the entire pipeline we've used until now to make games. And it's like, all right, neat.
Yep, unexpected things. Localization is a little easier. You're also not doing physicals, which is a whole.
Or, well, we are doing some physicals. I've got them right behind me now.
But you have them.
Yep, I have a crate next to me of 50 posters ready to go.
Are these like full-size big posters?
Oh yeah, these are. I believe they're 24 inches by 18. Like they're big.
Okay, serious. Okay, and you're gonna ship those things out.
Yeah,
So
I was literally spending most of today rolling these posters into their tubes.
yeah, because you get them in the big wide box, right? Because they're flat. They come
Oh yeah.
flat when you order
Oh
posters,
no.
guys.
So the annoying thing about these ones is they came pre-tubed, but the tubes they came in were really big, so they counted as like a large package. So we had
Oh,
to buy smaller tubes that counted as
ooh,
a smaller package because like the volume or whatever.
yeah, because yeah, it's a tube. So anyone who wants to do physical goods, we're gonna give you some secrets here. That these tubes are calculated in linear feet or linear inches by measurement.
Mm.
So it's just they add up length, width, height, all that stuff, and they charge
Yeah.
you on that because a poster
Yeah.
is ridiculously light, but it's big, so they will charge
Yeah,
you on volume and not
they
price.
know if they charged you by weight. It's like these sons of bitches are taking up like a,
Yeah.
a square meter, but it's just like, oh, but it's posters, haha.
Yep. So they're not stupid, so they will get their money's worth
Yeah,
for their
right.
service. Yeah, and then you ship them. And if anyone's ever curious about how much it costs to ship a poster internationally, you should take a look because it's usually 20-30 bucks if you're
Yeah.
shipping it across the planet. Right.
Oh yeah, like we have a few backers in Australia that were just like, I really hope they like this friggin' poster.
Right, because you guys did you get free shipping?
Yep.
Okay, so that cost just gets spread amongst on average everything, right? So
Oh yeah.
great
I think we had a really good like figure like number crunching when we were getting the posters like printed and getting them ready to ship.
uh-huh.
Is that we in like with the number of people who backed that tier will
Uh-huh.
make $3,000, and we're probably going to end up spending around $1,000 just to get the posters shipped.
Not surprising, actually.
Or well, printed and shipped. I don't know
Yeah.
if we ended up saying it was just like made and then I think we couldn't spend $1,000 on shipping. That would be insane. It must be like the creation of the posters and then the shipping of them is around $1,000.
Probably, yeah. Granted, posters are not that expensive in the grand scheme of things. They're like,
Yeah.
a couple of bucks a poster when you're ordering 100 of them at a time, right?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
they're
And
not
I
that
think
much.
I might have touched on this in the first recording, but it was definitely we got really lucky because we printed them quite recently, like maybe last week.
Mhm.
And as we were like looking into it, we realized the place we wanted to print with had a 50% deal, and we're just like, oh, awesome.
Perfect. Double. You have backups.
Yeah. So we have extra posters now. If you want to, send us some more money, baby.
Yes.
So
and
I think now the boss wants to figure out a way we can like sell posters physically. So I don't know if we will set up a PayPal or something like that. But hey,
like
sometimes good things happen in Kickstarters.
a little small, mail order business on the
Yep.
side. It works. It's yeah, goods. People like them. Collectors
Exactly.
like them. So posters are usually good. And this is why, if you notice, lots of places are starting to consolidate on compact things that fit into a nice little dense box.
Yep.
CDs are great. Postcards are great.
Yeah.
Like,
I think the postcards were like I said, they were the secret success that I wish we started with because they're such a easy to make reward, but I think it is just that whole collector mentality of like, oh, I actually get something.
yeah. Though you do have to remember that you have to ship that box of postcards or have them printed in Japan. And then that
Yeah.
poor artist guy is going to have a stack on his desk of 300 plus of these things
Yep.
with a Sharpie, and he's just going to go.
I mean, I'm hoping at the end of it he doesn't forget his name and just start signing his name as Ryu-chan, but
Well, if he
We'll
does
see.
that, I mean, if he does that, he just gets to do it all over again.
exactly. It's like, well,
He has no one else to blame but himself. So
exactly.
it should be fine.
Another box of postcards show up at his door. It's like, do him right this time, kid.
I know. But yeah, physical goods, man. You
Very
have to
painful.
budget for it. I remember one time I was budgeting stickers for my conference. So there's like 100, 200 people who wanted to go to a conference. And I'm like, what if I mailed everyone a sticker for free? And I just went online and it's just, okay, if I bought 100 stickers or 200 stickers and then like postage for each one. And
Yep.
then I did the
And
math.
that's not even, like putting them in a box. That is just, here's an envelope in the post.
Yeah, just buy an envelope, buy stamp, and then like half of them were international stamps, which cost more, like double or a little over double, and a sticker. And those three things, and I added it all up, it cost about $250 to send about 100 stickers across the globe. It's insane once you do the math.
Yep. I think that's why one of the reasons we did the whole postcards from Japan, just because for whatever
Mhm.
reason it's way cheaper to ship from Japan than it was here.
I know that's true. Shipping rates differ by country. Well,
Or well, I
postcard
don't want
rates
to say
also.
shipping. It is. I think it might just be the postage. That's why we're
Po-
doing the
yeah,
postcards from Japan, and not.
postcard rates are always cheaper than international. Like if you travel and you send a postcard home, it's
Yeah.
actually cheaper than a letter because they're lighter. That's just how
Yeah.
it is. But I do know certain countries do have privileged shipping rates for small packages.
Mm.
So if you ever buy like a random widget from China, like electronic parts, like little things, it costs like 50 cents to buy a thing and it's shipped all the way from like Hong Kong or something to your door.
Yeah.
And it's no way you can ship that same package the other way back for the same price. It's
Exactly.
just they have a privileged price. It's weird. Shipping is weird. Customs is weird.
Shipping is weird.
Surprisingly expensive.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's one of those things that maybe a lot of people don't factor in when they first start. Or it's just one of those. I think it's just one of those things as well that not many people think about until it's actually time to get it done. And so you do get like people saying like, "Oh, why don't you just make this, and this as your Kickstarter tiers?" It's like someone's got to make that, and then we got to ship it.
Yeah. And and it's a common trap, right? Because like, especially with Kickstarters that are suddenly successful, you guys had time. You guys didn't.
Oh
You
yeah.
were like right down to the wire, right? So you guys were like in the struggle of how do I get the word out more? How do I get
Yeah.
more backers, right? So there's a
Yeah.
whole thing there.
We didn't have that struggle that I remember you talking about, where it was we succeeded in the first hour. What do we do
Yes.
with all this extra money?
Yes, that's the other struggle that's actually sometimes even more dangerous because like when you have time to think about it, you can do the whole rational let's do the math before we put out a new tier thing.
Yeah.
But
But when you have
you're
like $30,000 sitting around, it's like I'll promise the whole world, and then suddenly it's like, oh man,
yeah, it's like yeah, if we hit, you make an arbitrary goal. If I hit $100,000, we're gonna have, and then you're gonna add a new tier for something, and you
Yeah.
totally did not think through all the because that 100,000, right? That whatever stretch goal, whatever you hit, not all of that money is like extra money you keep, right? There's the variable cost of all the stuff you're doing, right? It's not you
Yep.
can't pocket all of that, and if you're not factoring in all that stuff, you're suddenly gonna start promising the moon, and then you're stuck with the bill after.
Yeah, the knee-jerk reaction of like, here's some extra stuff now that we have the money.
Yep,
Like
we
it's
we
almost
have
like
more
that,
money.
that dreamlike fugue of just like, oh, our Kickstarter succeeded. We've got all this extra money. We can finally make our dreams come true. And it's like, no.
Yep.
Crush those dreams. Here's what you really need to do.
Yeah, it's like face cold hard reality here
Yeah.
because I mean
Your dreams
that
aren't
that money's spoken for, and
Hmm.
once you promise it, you can't take it back. Like we went back to saying about the rewards. Like once it's out there,
Yeah.
and someone's bought it. Nope.
That's locked in.
Yeah. I mean, and backing out of it's not a pretty sight.
Oh yeah, it would be. I can't imagine how hard it would be to backtrack your way out of a Kickstarter.
I don't know. I mean, thanks to this, like the crazy failures we've seen in the past few years of just like companies going bankrupt with their Kickstarters, there is an aspect of, well, if you're totally screwed, then I guess everyone else is screwed. But falling short of that, if you're in any way viable,
Yeah, it's just like, what the hell are you doing?
yeah, it's also like, well, you're going to be staring down the barrel of some lawsuits. Like that's not
yeah.
fun. So, and for small companies like ours, like, one lawsuit and we're gone.
It's over. It's like, well, okay, let's just call it quits.
Yeah, it's going to cost like 50,000 just to defend the lawsuit, and you don't even have that much money, right? So if you had that much money, you would have done the thing already.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I was gonna say, if we had $50,000 lying around to pay a hypothetical lawyer, we might have used it for something else. We might not have even done a Kickstarter to begin with.
Exactly. Yeah. Though there are instances where I've seen companies use Kickstarters for promotional purposes more so than
Yeah, I know there were some that would just do a Kickstarter for like just a physical version of the game,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, that's interesting, just because it is like everyone knows what they're getting into. It's just like I'm just buying a CD in a box that'll be shipped to me, and it's like, oh, cool.
Yep.
And it would be way easier than saying like, I want you to believe in the idea of this game that we're selling you on. Or it's like, even for us, it's like, I want you to buy into the possibility that this is a good translation. And so,
yeah,
like personally, when we first started Kickstarter, I was super paranoid, and I don't know. It was just one of those things where I already don't like like the whole pre-order culture of games as it is right now.
Mhm.
And I would hate to be just like the next company in line that does, we're going to do a Kickstarter, give us your money and we'll promise we'll do a game, okay? And it's just like, ugh.
Yeah, there's a thing, but getting the capital for even a localization is always a struggle too. So
exactly.
it's a balancing act, right? Like you theoretically need to be offering value, and on the other hand, you are banking on your name. Essentially, there is a reputation, and it will follow you.
Yeah.
I mean, there's rare like exceptions of people who just are serial scammy crazy people, but putting that aside, like in general, if you have a horrible explosion for one campaign, the next one is not going to be nearly as good.
Yeah, like you got to make up a lot of ground just trying to be like, hey guys, we know what happened last time, so
yeah, it's like, why is this one different? It's like, all right, trust me. No, that doesn't really work very well.
It's like, well, you said trust you last time.
Exactly. So it's an uphill battle once you get to that point. So it is very important to just make sure you don't promise anything you can't reasonably do.
Like I'm hoping once these posters get out, that's the I think until the game's done, that's all the deliverables we'll need to manufacture, like complete.
Right. So
that's a weight off my shoulders.
Mm-hmm. Until the next time you guys decide you want to try making actual physical goods.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say as soon as we printed out the posters, my boss was telling me like, you know what, this went really well. We should do another Kickstarter. And I'm just like, oh, no, not again.
Just make him run it.
Exactly.
Make him feel that pain.
Dark place.
I know. Let's see. Oh, that brings up another thing. How did it feel for you just running this thing? What did it feel like?
So it was just kind of that struggle, like I said earlier, of just making sure everything is properly explained, so that I hopefully don't need to go back and change anything, which I ended up having to do with the whole digital key thing.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, like I think it was pretty on track. Like we never changed the core of the game. Like it wasn't like we didn't go back and say, oh, instead of doing this, we're doing X instead of Y. So it was definitely easy in that respect of like the only times I had to really deal with like a problem were people being like, like I said, the guy pulling out of the last minute, like, oh, can I pay with PayPal? No, like that's something we already said.
Uh-huh.
But someone from our Discord said, you can only spend so much time idiot-proofing something before the world just builds a better idiot.
Yeah.
And so, I like, taking that to heart, it was like, no matter how much I go in depth and explain everything, like with our FAQ section, with updates, with comments, with posts, there's still going to be that one guy who, backed at the beginning, never checked back, and maybe in like a month after the Kickstarter's over, we'll chime back in after not answering any of the surveys and being, hey, where's my game and all this stuff I was promised? It's like, all right. Like, I guess like, you gave us your money, so we need to make sure that you're happy with it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And yeah, really like just the most stressful part was doing that when every day you spend just watching that like little graph not tick up or tick down.
Yes.
Sometimes it is just like, it's heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've got like a good community, or if you've got just like good people like around you, like that was one of the things that kept us like really motivated, was like some of the guys in our Discord, some of the people on Twitter that we have are just like, can't wait for this. Like I told my friends, and it's like, really, like, oh wow. And like, suddenly a bunch of people joined the Discord. It's like, oh, hey, so-and-so told me you guys are doing this. That's awesome. Like I just backed. It's like, this is crazy. Like when you can put faces to these like numbers that appearing on like a graph, they suddenly mean so much more.
Yeah.
And so I guess like that's kind of the double-edged sword though, is like, I guess if we were like really in danger of failing, it's like, oh God, I know these people are excited and like I want to make sure this is done. But like you said, luckily we made it.
Just made it, so it's just really important. And it is a struggle, right? 30 days. It's a 30-day marathon of constantly
sprinting
worrying.
Every day.
Yeah, sprinting every day, right? Because it's like, is it gonna make it? Is it gonna make it? You're always like checking. It's like, okay, what can I do? What can I do? Who do I talk to? Who do I market to? How many more tweets should I write?
You look every day, and it's like, listen, we need like. It was one of those things when we first started. I'm like, listen, if we make $500 every day, we'll finish with like 10 days to just kind of like, we can have 10 bad days,
and
then that when that first like drop off happened, I'm like, oh god, like, you know, like you said, who can I tweet? Who can I reach out to? Who can I shill to? Who can I like? Where can I put this?
Uh-huh.
And so during that middle part, it was definitely rough because that's what it was kind of like. We were digging to the bottom of the barrel of like, where can I post? Like, where can I post where people will read this who might care? And so like we threw some like messages up on Reddit, which kind of got some really bad receptions just because it's like, you know, it is like Nuki Gay. It's just Arrow content, and they're just like why the hell is this on VN r/VN? Like this is crap. Like why are you guys spending money to translate this like porn game? This is crap. Blah blah. And it's just like.
Yeah.
That's just like, oh god, is this our audience? Are we getting like, should we not have been doing this? And the doubt kind of starts to set in, and then it's just like, oh man, it's bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the wrong corner of the internet for that thing.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And that was like, I think that was the struggle for us, was just finding that correct corner of like, who do I need to talk to get some more eyes on? Who do I need to talk to get people talking? But then there is also just the whole, I don't really know if it is just a matter of like, something happened towards the end where our tweets suddenly reached more people, but like just that last stretch where suddenly the people who might have been following the Kickstarter the whole time are like, oh, okay, it like they need me, where it was like, oh, I'll follow the Kickstarter, but I won't back it, or it's like, you know, something.
There's always like toward the end, like the last week or so, there's usually a rush of people because of the time pressure. It's just like, oh my god, this thing that I didn't really care about last week, but now that it's about to end, I suddenly care about it, and I'm going to give money.
Or it's like not even like I suddenly care about it. It's more like, oh, now it's within like a realistic goal. Like,
yeah, it's close enough.
We're within like $2,000. It's like, oh man, like my $10 suddenly means so much more to go $10 closer to 10,000 than it was like, oh, here's $10 out of 500 so far.
Yep. And then like,
it is that thing where it's like, oh, they've already raised $8,000. These guys are probably like, you know, they're legit. Like they'll follow through.
Yeah. That's a chicken egg problem with these things, right? Success always breeds success. The more backers you have, the more likely someone is going to back into it. Yeah. Cause they're just like, oh, well, all these other guys are jumping off the bridge. I'm going to jump off the bridge too.
Yeah.
It's totally a thing.
Yeah, I think that's like the same logic I think I've been trying to use with like our like the social media thing, where it's just like, man, if more people followed us, more people would tweet about us, and we'd get more followers. And then you just kind of sit there thinking, well, shit, how do I get more followers though?
Yep. Yeah, it's always a struggle. The first few are always a struggle. It's just how it is.
Like again, hopefully now that, you know, we've succeeded one Kickstarter, and it'll go well. Like the game will come out and it'll be great.
Mm-hmm.
So we can always point back and say, hey, we already did this other Kickstarter, so you can tell, you know, we're legitimate. Like we're not just going to take your money, and like we will deliver a good product.
Mm-hmm. Well, you also have people who have previously backed. You can message all those people again. I'm sure of
exactly.
This.
Be like, hey, we're trying again.
Right, because we're doing a thing. You've backed us before. We haven't let you down. Hopefully, so
yeah, right.
Look at this new thing.
All that cherry has goodwill will come pouring through.
Right. So so that's something to look forward to when you do it, and then. So you're gonna get same questions.
Oh yeah.
What about
same
PayPal?
Questions, just different people.
Yeah. What about PayPal? What about this? What about that? What about where's the patch?
And hopefully, maybe by then we'll have new answers, or maybe we won't. I don't know.
Yeah, that's just how it is. Mm-hmm. But yeah, running a Kickstarter, guys, it's planning.
Yep. It's planning until something changes, and then it's just like. You need to scramble in a very rational and thought out way.
Yeah, like I guess the one thing would be like really understand your cost structure, your expenses. What can change, what can't change, what can you promise? Like, because everything falls out of that, right? Like you can promise the moon, and if you can actually afford it, hey, go for it. It's
like that's great.
Like, but and also you have to plan for rainy days. Like. I know some people who like, you know, need exactly like, let's say $5,000 for their project, like down to a penny, and then they ask for 5,000, but then they forget to factor in something.
Yeah, that like 10% of that gets taken away by processing fees.
Yep, or taxes. They accidentally pay taxes on the revenue when it's not even recognized revenue yet. You haven't even fulfilled the thing. It's actually accounting wise handled a totally different way. Talk to your accountant if you don't understand what the hell I'm talking about, because it's important. If I don't even know what the tax rate is in Canada, but if it's like 20 30% for corporate, right, Like it matters
losing
if you
20 to 30% of your Kickstarter is just like, whew.
Yeah, if you pay that up front before you even pay your expenses, that can destroy your project. When as a business, you're supposed to do your expenses before you pay taxes, right? So if you get the order wrong, you will destroy yourself.
And that was one of the other weird things. Like, I guess this is almost a callback during planning, but deciding on the number, like how much you're trying to raise, is kind of a weird beast. Where it's like, it's the same concept of like pricing your game. Like, you know, you don't want to set the price too low, I guess, because people might think that it is like, oh, why are you charging so low for this localization project? Like, is this going to be a crappy game since it's like so little money? And then if you charge too much money, then you get the kind of reaction we got where it's like, why do you need $10,000 to make this, you know, less than 2 hour Nuki Gay arrow trash? And it's just like,
But no, well, actually, it's two things though. It's not just the actual cost, and how to price it, but also the perception. Because like you and I, we do this. Like, we do localization. We know how much it costs. A 2 hour game can cost upwards of 10,000 plus to do.
Exactly.
When you're paying at like a reasonable rate, like if you're paying like slave
when you're not
wage,
actively trying to fuck over your translator,
right? So if you're doing, you know, I've seen rates even much higher than that, and I've seen rates that are like so sketchily low that it's not even feasible unless that person happens to be living in a third world country.
Yeah, or it's just one of those things where it's like, are you just doing this to get like promotion? Like, what is the real purpose of this Kickstarter?
Yeah, I've seen like there are like, you know, AAA, well not AAA, but like, you know, serious game houses that will ask for 200,000 for a game that obviously will take a couple million to do. Yeah, but they always have funding from somewhere else, but they're running it for promotion purposes or yeah, they have the full backing of Sony, but they have this whole Kickstarter just because
they just want to make sure people still care.
Yep. So I mean, that is a legitimate question to ask. Like, do people care enough about this thing so, you know, you can love it, hate it, whatever, but but deciding, okay, should I ask for 1 million or should I ask for 1,000?
It's like, do you want to just hit your goal, or do you want to, you know, cover your expenses?
Or do you want to? Are you willing to take a loss and bet that this thing will sell so that you can after it's out, right? Like,
because that was one of the options was like, oh, should we make our Kickstarter lower? And like, I think in our FAQ section, or just like in the general campaign part of our Kickstarter page, we do have like the kind of like a very simple pie chart that is just like, this much will go to the translation effort, this much will just, you know, help keep the company going. And so that extra 30% we have written here, like that extra 30% was, we're thinking maybe we should just make like an $8,000 Kickstarter and just use that to pay the translator and then the processing fees. But it's also like, you know, if we're gonna kickstart this game, we're gonna kickstart the expenses that this game will generate, and that'll be like, you know, X amount man hours that we need to account for.
Yeah, that's totally a reasonable way to do it. You can argue it. I've seen it argued either way.
Yeah, either way.
It works. It's just, okay, well, you also just have to be like, in this market with the current Kickstarter's, you know, environment, which is always shifting. Yeah. What can you reasonably expect to get, right? Like, sometimes it's like, you know, you have a niche thing. You're only going to get like 500 people, no matter how hard you try, right? If that's all you can get, well, not all 500 of them will give you $1,000. So you can't ask for certain values. And so, you know, figuring out that average amount that people are willing to give you.
Yeah. And that is that's one of the really helpful things that Kickstarter does provide, is they do show like the average pledge of all your backers. So it's like, I kind of wish that information was made available to just people looking at Kickstarters. Like, I wish I could have seen how much the average any other visual novel Kickstarter made, and just be like, oh, we could, you know, kind of adjust our tiers accordingly. But it's just one of those things that you just kind of do once to figure it out, and then use that knowledge going forward. I mean,
you can get a rough estimate. Like, okay, you guys made 11,000 and you had 300 plus backers. Well, you divide it on average, it's like, you know, $40 or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And that's close, but then it doesn't say anything about, okay, half of those guys bought the cheapest thing they could buy. And then there's the 5 guys who gave you $8,000 just because they're nice, right? Like,
And then there are like we do have some people who would like who gave us more than $100 for the poster, but not the full $800 for the next thing. Just that it is
Yeah.
like someone from our community was like, hey, listen, I really want this project to succeed. I really want you guys to succeed. Like,
Yeah. Here's some
here
extra
you go.
money.
And it's just like that means so much. And it's just like, oh my god, a tear in my eye.
It's like, and I'll send you a thing for free because I like you. Like I've done
Exactly.
that too. It's like you helped me, right? Like there's definitely that connection, especially because it's only a couple of people who do that, and so you can interact with them directly. That's
And I think, like I said earlier, the good thing about being small for now is that if people do want to ask like me personally a question, it's just like, yeah, I'm here.
But yeah, even for a second project, that's still a thing. We're not that big. We saw what our Discord's larger, but still, it's like if someone complains or talks about something, we're sitting there. We're aware of it.
You have people at the ready.
Yeah. So that interaction is nice.
Yeah, for sure.
It gets tricky when you have to come back with bad news about, hey, our guy is in the hospital, delays, but what can you do?
Yeah, but I mean, normally when it's like a, I don't know what you'd call it, like a reasonable reason.
Mm-hmm. Like
normally people get it.
Yeah. I mean, so no one's gonna be happy. We're just like, yeah, we drank all the things because we went to a bar. Like don't do that.
It's like, man, the Kickstarter succeeded. Then we had a really awesome party. Wish you guys were here.
Yep.
By the way, I kind of need another $10,000.
I know, but like if you come back and say, yeah, well, this game just totally does not handle the text that we put in because it just is an old Japanese engine. We just have to rebuild the entire freaking thing. Yeah, it's gonna take us, $5,000 in 6 months to rebuild this engine with a programmer.
Yeah,
that's how it is, and they can understand. It's like,
I think when you get more towards like the technical mumbo jumbo side, that's when it either gets to that point where people will just blindly accept like that makes sense, or you get people who question it, being like, well, I don't think it'll take that long. It's like, right.
Okay, oh well,
point taken, but
yeah. What are you gonna do? Okay.
Yeah. Luckily we don't have that problem.
We've started just like lamenting over the crazy post Kickstarter things.
Yeah, the Kickstarter just fallout.
Yep. But okay, so to bring it back, we're pushing an hour here, so we should just kind of clean it. Okay, so anything that you would like to do for your next Kickstarter now that you've done this one?
So if we do another Kickstarter, if we do the next time we do a Kickstarter, it'll definitely be like, I think we'll have our tiers in order straight away, and so I think that'll make the whole process much easier because we won't be like backtracking or rechanging anything.
Mm-hmm.
But it like I said earlier, like I wish I knew the behavior of some people. Like again, the average amount pledged, or it is just like, oh, I can see what the behavior of some of these people. I kind of know our market better now.
Mm-hmm.
And like, obviously I won't go post in certain places, or I won't say certain things because that's not really what people care about. They care about, X, Y, and Z, but I was talking about A, B, and C.
Mm-hmm.
And just like knowing that is useful. So
yeah,
the tiers will be different. The tiers will be consolidated. The marketing will be more on point. And I think the last time we talked about this, it was definitely just staying on message, where anything you say has a purpose and you're conveying everything to, meet some goal.
Mm-hmm.
And staying with that is really just like the most important thing. And it'll be easier to do now that we've done it once before. And so
definitely,
hopefully next time it'll be easier, just because, like I said, all the things we've learned, and just like the new connections we've made, and the like what we've discovered that we can actually do.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we will try to be a bit more ambitious with like physical goods, being like, oh, maybe we will try to make a full, like, obviously not like a full paperback art book, but maybe we can offer some more interesting stuff, just because now we know, now we know how much it costs for us to ship things, and now we know how much time it takes like one of our employees to do all this man work, where it is just like, I'm going to send these people Steam keys. That takes time that we didn't think about.
Definitely. And then, an art book would be cool. Though I have to warn you, dead trees are very heavy.
Oh, man.
Very heavy.
I know. We've got like I said, I've got my crate full of shiny dead trees. They
Oh
are.
yeah, the one poster box. It looks so innocent, right? And then you pick it up and
Yep.
oh
It's like, oh Christ.
yeah. Whenever I was unpacking for AX, the thing I would fear the most were the little small boxes, because those would be the ones with the little books inside. The
Those
giant
be
box, those will be DVDs. You pick it up with like one arm. It's easy. And then like this little box that looks so small in the bottom of the truck, and you're like, oh my god, this is 20 pounds or 50 pounds. Like
this much stuff.
yeah, it's just you're not expecting it. It's so dead trees, man. It's their revenge for killing them.
Time.
I know. Okay.
Even in death.
I know. It's just okay. Well, but they're pretty. People like them, art books. So, if you have a good printer, anyway, the value, like learning printing is also another thing. So,
yeah.
good luck with
maybe
that.
hopefully Vistaprint does a seasonal thing where next year they'll also sell their posters 50% off, and we'll be like, we're ready.
Well, posters, yeah. But if you're doing books, you're definitely going to need a print shop. So.
Oh yeah, full book. That I think that's still very much out of the question, because it would just be someone needs to sit there and now make a beautiful book.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a fun learning process, so it's worth looking into. But it gets pretty deep. There are jobs around this whole goods production thing. So anyone who's thinking about it, just be very careful about what you're doing.
Yeah, hopefully you know a thing or two about making books before you just decide willy-nilly to make a book.
Yeah, or you make some practice books first that you hide.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're kind of running a lot over time. So all right, thank you very much. Had a lot of fun recording this again with you. We've covered entirely different things, I think, but whatever.
That's okay. This time was much better.
Yes, sure. we were both a lot clearer. Though we did wander off about something else, but oh well.
Yeah, we had another tangential discussion.
That's fine. Tangential discussions are part of this whole podcast anyway, so it's fine.
Exactly.
And then So if anything, once you get all your stuff out, I might ask you to just come back and be like, do a full like, oh my god, this is finally out postmortem thing, which would be kind of fun.
I think if that's the case, you'll definitely get a more postmortem, just like the development side. Since, like I said, this is our last physical good that I'll need to deal with at all, for me at least. So it'll be just down to coding.
Yes, and then you'll ship, and then it'll be digital, so you don't have to worry about a lot of things.
It'll be glorious.
Yes. Yeah. All right. I'm looking forward to it.
Woohoo!
All right. So thank you.
No problem.